On today's episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, we are finishing up our Writing Groups 101 series, Critique, Do's, and Don'ts. And this week, we're going to be looking at a piece from Jamie. So stay tuned. And welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie authors on their journey toward publication. My name is Jenifer Carll-Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian dystopian fiction.
I'm Jamie Hirschberger, and I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
And we are still down one host, and I can't believe after all this time that Rhonda has been on medical leave that I have not done a face on a popsicle stick for her. Like, I could have been all this time. She could have been encouraging me and could have been telling me all kinds of stuff. I guess that's going to happen here pretty soon. But for those of you that are new to us, we are down one of our hosts. Miss Rhonda Hagerman is taking a little bit of time for sick leave. And those of you that know Rhonda or have been with us for a while, we do covet your prayers for her. She is still not out of the weeds, and we love her. And if you're listening, Rhonda, just know that we miss you and you are loved.
Yes.
So we like to start off every episode of this podcast with our what we call the What's Up. It's where a time for us to check in with each other, see what's happening in our lives, and just to say what's up. So Jamie, I'm gonna start with you today. What's up?
All right. Well, I'm just continuing in my What's Up, my comparing the words of the Stoics to the words of the Bible. Good morning, Gigi and KR Vanderpoort and Piper. And KR says she is praying for Rhonda. That's very awesome. We appreciate you guys. So I'm going to share with you, Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." And there are many verses in the Bible that deal with adversity and hardship. But I looked up this one because people have been bringing it up to me lately in conversations about this topic. And it is Zechariah 13:9. "And I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God." And I thought that was really good to look up, because people will just say, "Oh, the refiner's fire." Mm-hmm. And I did not even know which part of the Bible that was in or which scripture it referenced. So I thought I would look that up.
I appreciate that, because there is so much in our vernacular as Christians that we just take for granted and really don't know where to find it, like, honestly. So appreciate that.
It's really fascinating too. If you study the refining process, you heat the silver up until what they call the dross floats to the top. Mm-hmm. And then they skim that off, and then they just keep repeating the process until no more dross comes to the top. And then when it gets to that point, that's when the silver is shiny and beautiful, and you can see your reflection in it. Wow. So like there's so much spiritually in there that you could unpack. It's
really, I love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, anybody who's going through anything doesn't want to hear it.
Of course not.
Right.
But it is. I'm at a place where it's an awesome thing for me to hear. So.
That's awesome. Piper says, "I know a lot of stuff from the Bible. I have no idea where it lives. LOL, like it's addressed." Right.
Right.
Same here. Same here.
But luckily we have Google.
Right.
I know. We are so spoiled. What's up with you, Jen?
Well, I'm getting ready to go camping this weekend with my family. It's for those of you that are not in the States, here in the United States, we have a 3-day weekend. It is called Labor Day. Monday we get off. And since my husband works nights, he gets that Monday night off. So we actually are kind of getting like 4 nights away. So very, very excited about doing that. Just plugging away at stuff here. That's it. I'm like, Like, all week long, we are working on the house and trying to do different things in the house with, like, only so much weather left, and, had a bug guy come. Now that's not exciting, but, like, I just hadn't had him come this year. We have a great exterminator that comes. I swear this house is, like, just, like, cursed with spiders, and so, we finally had him come and took care of that, so, yay. So, Kim is also here today. She says, "Good morning, a little signal here at Mom's." Oh, good. We're glad you're able to join us, Kim. Piper says, "Hi, ladies." Oh, she's talking to everyone else, so she'd already said
Oh,
hi.
and Shell also popped in on and says hi.
Oh, there you are, Shell. I missed you. Hi, Shell. Thanks for saying that, Jamie. All right, Tina, what's up with you today?
Well, I just got back from the Pacific Northwest, where I have won the battle with the spiders.
Yeah.
So in case you don't follow me on Facebook, there was this orb weaver that was living in the tomato plant that my mom kept having me go out and pick tomatoes off of.
Oh, wow.
And the little opening where in the bush where you could stick your hand to reach all the tomatoes was right where the spider had built its web. So I knocked it down with a stick the first day and then I went back the next day and that stupid spider was back in the same spot.
Doesn't sound so stupid to me.
Right?
Well, I anyway, so I knocked him down again. And the next day he was back in the same
Oh, my
spot.
word.
So I took her garden hose and it has one of those power spouts on it. And I sprayed him across the other end of the driveway.
And did he come back after that?
Yes.
Why couldn't you just kill him?
I don't know if it was his twin sister or if it was him, but there was that was like the premium spot apparently.
Uh-huh.
So then he got mad at me and he sent his big brother after me, his adopted brother, who is in the species called, and this is the legal name, giant house spider.
Oh, my word.
And it was this big.
Oh, I saw that picture.
And it was up on the wall on the corner by the fireplace. And my mom's like, okay, here. She hands me a Swiffer.
Mhm.
Smash him with this. Well, the end of the Swiffer isn't
It's floppy.
fixed. It's
Yeah.
floppy. So when I tried to smash him, he just got on the outside
Oh.
Oh.
and was coming towards me, and I freaked out. And I dropped it, and it broke my mother's ceramic angel that was on her fireplace mantle. And I don't know we didn't know where the spider went. He was gone.
Oh, no.
And for 2 days, I was afraid to go to the bathroom in the dark. I was like putting a blanket under my door so that he couldn't crawl.
Do the spiders up there bite? Is it a
He's
like,
harmless.
I was gonna say, in
looked it
Michigan,
up.
they're harmless, basically.
Well, yeah, they're harmless. They just look horrifying.
Yes.
I thought it was a tarantula at first. That's how big it was.
Right.
So 2 days later, there he is on the kitchen floor. So my mom's like, grab the vacuum. She's got this little vacuum you can hold in your hand. So I sucked him up in the vacuum and she clogged the opening of the hose with a paper towel. And we let the vacuum sit there for 2 more days.
Mhm.
So then it was the night before garbage night, and she's like, let's take the vacuum outside just in case.
Uh-huh.
So we take it out on the front porch, and it has one of those, it's an old one, so it has actually has bags still.
Mhm.
And so she's holding it in this hand, and she has this screwdriver trying to pry the bag out like a flathead because it wasn't coming out. And that spider came crawling out of the bag onto the vacuum and was like going towards my mother. I'm like, Mom, he's going towards your hand. So she knocked him down with the screwdriver onto the ground, and he ran right toward me. So there may have been screaming. I don't remember, but
You blacked out at some point.
as I stepped on him.
Piper says, "Well, I mean, spider bites hurt even if they're not poisonous. Also, if you don't want that thing crawling on your face at night." All right, yes. So I was gonna clarify, like, yes, in Michigan, they will bite you. It's more like a mosquito bite kind of a situation. I'm more allergic to them than mosquitoes. Like, my whole leg will swell up with one. But at the same time, like, I'm not gonna die from it, I guess is what I was like, because so I will kill
Right.
them. Like, I have no issues. Your mom knows that someone can come in and spray her house, right? And
Oh,
then
yeah. It's
it's a
just
miracle. Like, I grew up with spiders and mice and whatnot, like, just ugh. And I was well into my adult life before I realized that an exterminator can really take care of your spiders. Like, if they come
that's
in
what we
and
do.
yeah, and they spray your house, you will not have spiders. I'm like, "What? Why have I not done this my whole life?"
So anyway, I went out to get tomatoes the next day, and a bird had gotten, I believe a bird had gotten the orb weaver because the web was just kind of flopping, like
Ah,
where the middle was missing out of the web.
the Lord
So I
saved
won.
you.
I won the war with the spiders.
That's
So
awesome.
that's my
Well,
story
did
from
you
my
have a good
trip.
time
Yes, I
besides the
did.
spiders, you had a good
Yeah.
time? Okay,
We
good.
went to the grocery store 6 times. So yeah, it's like that's what we did.
What is that fun? Like, you enjoy that?
My mom hasn't been driving because she's been getting
Oh,
dizzy, and she
yeah.
does. So she had a driver. So we went. We went to
Oh,
Winco twice, and if anyone knows what Winco is, I was like, it was like Disneyland. I was over there in the
really?
bulk section. I got 2 pounds of Bob's Red Mill whole wheat flour for 64 cents.
Oh, wow.
So like that's the kind of prices they had on their bulk. I just went crazy. I brought stuff home with me because I had got too much to use.
Right. That's awesome.
Sesame seeds, I still have like a cup of sesame seeds.
Cool.
Those are expensive. Anyway, yeah, I had a
Uh,
good time.
well, good. I'm glad you had fun. All right. So this episode, we are going to be finishing up our writing critique. What do we call it? Critique do's and don'ts, writing groups 101. And we have at first we did a critique of a piece of Tina's, and then the ladies critiqued a piece of mine. So today on the chopping block is our dear friend J.R. Nichols, Jamie. And if you are a member of our Facebook group, you can head on over to the group, and she has posted the piece so you can follow along if you want. Hopefully you've already read it, or if you're listening to this later, you might want to stop the audio and go over and read the piece so that you can kind of understand what we're talking about. If you're not a member of our Facebook group, you do want to join because we always have things like this happening over there. So in the show notes, you will find a link to that group. So um, if you also want to see kind of how we do this, we have a critique cheat sheet, we call it. We've had it since day one of this podcast. If you sign up for our newsletter, you will get access to the critique cheat sheet. I've never
You
been
can
able
see
to
the
spell it so well.
amazing graphic of a bologna sandwich that I made. Okay.
Is that
Still
what it
getting
was? Is a
mileage
bologna
out of
sandwich?
that graphic. Yeah.
So the way we talk about it, the reason why we call it a sandwich is you start off with something good, the bread. Like so your critiquing should always be sandwich with good. So you start off saying something you liked about the piece and you're going to end with something that you liked about the piece. But in the middle where the meat is, that's where the really good stuff is. That's the stuff that's going to really help your writer friends is the critique stuff that you give them. So that's why when you hear us say here's some bread, here's some meat, that's what we're talking about. So, Jamie, do you have anything you want to say to us or that you want to share with us before we put you in the isolation booth? Because we don't let her talk when we're doing the critiquing.
No, I will have to write my notes because I forgot my little paper, but that is all I have to say.
Okay. All right. Well, do you have any questions for Jamie before we go in?
Mm-mm.
All right. Okay. So Jamie is now, oh, she already muted herself as well. So, okay. Tina, do you want to go first?
Well, I have bread, and I do not have Wonder Bread. I have like homemade bread
Oh.
with like butter and honey on it. Even though I don't eat butter anymore, this bread needs butter.
Okay.
So, um, the incredible imagination
Mm-hmm.
that it took to write this,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just in awe. Like there's
Agreed.
almost no words that are adequate That's why I had to describe that bread.
Right.
'Cause I feel like I don't have adequate words to describe, um, what kind of imagination it had to take to imagine this world.
So the world building is what you're
Yeah,
specifically
yeah,
speaking on. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Piper says, "Aha, look at Jamie's delight in the homemade bread." So, I had the blessing of being able to see this piece a year ago in, like, in an edited form, but it wasn't this piece. And I gotta tell you, my bread is that Jamie has really worked on, like, she had this great world, but the first piece that I saw was very, like, it was hard for me to follow it because I wasn't inside Jamie's head. I didn't know the whole world, and the critique I tried giving her, I think, was like, "You need to give us a little bit more because I'm more confused and I'm stopped at these different terms and who these people are." Um, and I think I'm missing what you're trying to get across in this chapter, and I'm gonna tell you, she nailed it. Like, she was able to go in and make it so much more less confusing. Because for me, I don't read this genre, so I'm not ready for, like, all the new kinds of terms and stuff and, like, and ready for it, and so I just think she did a really great job with that. I think that, like you said, the world building is there, and she just did a really, really good job in that part. I love that.
Mhm.
So did you have any meat after that, like, bread explanation, did you have any meat?
Um, this is gonna be, this sandwich is mostly vegetables because
Okay.
not because I'm vegan, but, there was a couple of little things that, kind of slowed me down as a reader. Now,
Mhm,
obviously, I'm not the English teacher. I'm not gonna give that kind of critique, as
mhm.
far as that stuff, but as a reader, there was just a couple of things that, um, that kinda threw me out of the story just a little bit because I have to picture things. Like, I'm a picture reader. Does that make
Uh-huh.
sense?
Yep.
Like, some people, like, actually picture the scene in their mind,
Right.
and I'm one of those people. And so the fact that I could not picture the vehicle he was in right away kind of slowed me. Like, it wasn't horrible, but it just kind of slowed me down a little
No,
bit.
I gotcha, like, the fact that, like and all of a sudden you realize it's flying. You didn't realize even though it's called,
Right.
was it a sky high? Let me see.
Yeah.
Um Sorry, I wrote in hand a free lift, sorry. So a free lift could have been like, it could mean other things, but yes. So I will agree with that critique is that maybe there are still a couple places that she could stop and
Right.
give more explanation, but she may want it just like that. She may want
That's
you to be
what I
like,
was
"Oh,
gonna
wait,
say.
it's in the air?" Like, so I
Hmm.
don't know that I hated that. Like, I think she could give you a little bit more explanation there, but I also think that, like, if that was her intent, that we
Right.
were supposed to be like, "Wait, what? It's in the air?" Then I think that it's okay. I think that
Hmm.
she it's okay, I think, to have some things like that in your writing as long as the whole chapter isn't like that, so it wasn't overwhelming, so but
Yeah, and I
yeah.
think in my mind the car that he was driving.
Mhm.
First of all, I didn't realize he was driving because she used the word cruise, and that was like a more
Mm.
passive word to me. So it took me a few sentences to realize he was driving. And then I
Uh-huh.
didn't know, like, should it be like sleek? Should I be imagining like sleek, futuristic,
Mhm.
and more boxy? Because then she talked about the free lift, and I didn't know what that was.
So that's a really good critique actually, because I've read more of this piece, because you would normally think that a piece that is, post-apocalyptic or futuristic, I don't know if it's post I would but at least futuristic, that you things would be sleek. That's a really good but I've read more of it, and I think it's supposed to be more kind of the opposite of that, that everything is kind of is more, like, maybe rustic? Not
Yeah.
rustic, I don't know how to put it in her terms, but
Well,
yes,
in my
so
brain, I kept going back and forth between, like, RoboCop car and Back to the Future car,
okay.
and so then I wasn't sure which one to pick in my picture in my head, and then when she said that, the thing that was coming up behind him, was that the free lift? What was the vehicle that was coming up behind?
Yes, a free lift,
Yeah,
yes.
at first I thought it was maybe a truck or a bus, and then she said freight train, but it didn't, like, to me, a train is on a track, so I had a little
Right.
bit of trouble, um, grasping that. But she might, like you said, she might want us to be in that state, because I just had trouble picturing it because I didn't know what it was. That's all. That's like the only meat that I have
Right, and I so
really for the piece.
I think that as a reader, I would eat that up. I would love all that detail about the car and because I think that giving you that detail will give you so much more insight into the world than just that, "Oh, they don't wanna hear about a car." Well, you're telling us more than just about a car. You're giving us insight into this world, and the car is just a picture, like a snapshot so that we can feel like we're there. So that's
Right.
what I'm getting out of what you're saying is that you didn't feel as much like you were there as that you would have liked to have felt.
Right. But see, here's the thing. If I
Mhm.
wasn't expected to come up with meat, I don't know that it would have
Right.
bothered me that much, because
Mhm.
like, I'm right now I'm reading a Brandon Sanderson book where he's got like these weird creatures all throughout the book, and there's always some new weird creature he's describing,
Mhm.
and I can't picture them sometimes, but I just move on,
Move on. Mhm.
and it doesn't take from the story.
Right. Right, the story is clear, I think, right now, which before the
Yes.
first version, it wasn't as clear. The story is clear, but I would agree with you. I think that, like, right there, if a little bit more information on the car, because I had to reread that paragraph again too, those 2 paragraphs to figure out, like, the whole free lift thing and, so
Yeah.
So if anyone watched our episode last week where it was just Jamie and I, we talked about my process for editing, for self-editing. I kind of use that a little bit with doing this. I actually took and copied this and put it into Microsoft Word and had it read it to me because again, I had already seen this piece, so I wanted to make sure I was catching it like kind of fresh. Does that make sense? Even though like I feel like she's done so much work on it, it almost felt like a new piece, but and so I listened to it and it sounds great. Like there wasn't a whole lot of stops, there wasn't a whole lot of like things that even Microsoft Word didn't understand what she was trying to say. There were a few like extra spaces and things like editing things and things that I found like that. What stopped me were the part of the piece where it talked about how his eyes, like what if he closed his eyes, would he wake up in surgery, which makes you like, oh, what's going on with this world? But my question is like, so in this world, do their eyes never shut? Like, do they have to keep their and like how does that work? Um, unless I just was really confused on that spot. Do you remember that part, Tina?
Yeah, I think the closing the eyes would be to block out this thing that was careening towards him, about to kill him.
Right, but
Yeah,
the whole point of, like, if I close my eyes, will I wake up? And so, like and
because it'll hit him and he'll be like half dead.
but she also used a term I wish I'd highlighted it. I think I highlighted it in Word, but I didn't keep that open. Um, let me just see if I can find it here. Um, anyway, she used a term that that, like, he kept his eyes on, like, he kept his eyes open or something, and I mean, it's so maybe I was just reading it too closely, like you said, because we're looking for meat, but I was a little confused on that, and maybe that is true, though. Maybe that they have made society where eyes don't have to shut, and so that was interesting.
Mm.
Um, and then the only other piece of meat that I have is that early in the piece, he sees a blonde woman, and he talks about how she'd never be interested in him, and she focuses on her a lot, and then later on there is an auburn-haired girl whose hair, with hair that's kind of messy or whatever, and then he talks about, love at first sight, and I know where she's going with this, and it's the auburn hair girl that we're supposed to, like, really kinda notice. So, my meat would be that she needs to go back to where he notices the blonde girl, and he needs to think less about her. Like, it needs to be less. It needs to be just like he spots this, like, blonde girl, her laugh or whatever got his attention, and unless she's a big part of the story too, I could be wrong because 'cause I've not read the whole story. If she's not a big part of the story and Jamie's just trying to point out that he is at a different level than those girls, and so he can't date those kinda girls, I think that she needs to show a little bit less of the blonde because I think our focus is too much there if we're supposed to focus on the brunette, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So,
The only other
G
meet that I had
mhm.
was this next part that confused me was when he flashed his grin. Like we were in his head and his thoughts, and then he flashed a grin. And I wasn't sure if he was flashing it at the girl or like in the
Mhm.
rearview mirror at himself. Like I was just a little
Mm. Oh, that's a
confused
good point.
at that specific line.
Gigi says, "I hear what you're saying about the vehicle, but for me, that part was exciting. This felt like part of the world building." Agreed. So you'll see that's exactly what we're saying is it may just be author's choice at that point. KR says, "I love the line about the eyes. It gave me the idea that he was afraid to even blink because he thought he was going to die in the next couple of seconds." So maybe I just missed the mark on that. So I'll have to hear what Jamie has to say about that. But um I think I now that I'm getting feedback from you guys, I think that I like just focused too much on that and was like not getting what she was saying. So again, loved the world building. I love how I already like feel like I know this character and how I can't wait to see like what happens next. And I love here's what I think I love about this world building too is that like the Govies and the state and all these things, like it's a whole existence now that I want to know more about. Like she gave us just enough in this little 1,500 words that makes me want to read more because now this is all real to me. Does that make sense? So I think
Hmm.
she did a really great job with this piece. I'm very excited to read the rest of this book.
Yeah, and I love that shattering moment at the end where she has the V on her
Yes.
thing. Yeah, I love that moment. And so
Mhm.
it's like, "Oh, no." And then so what is he gonna do? It's like he's gonna, like, throw his life away to go for her, or, like, like
Right.
because it kinda seems like you get this little bit of a taste of an oppressive society where he has to follow all these rules.
Yes.
And is he gonna break them for love? Like, so I loved
Yep.
that part.
I agree. Absolutely agree. All right, we ready to let her out?
I think so.
All right, Jamie. Oops, you're muted still.
That's what I was saying. Okay, I have to unmute, but then you guys can't hear me saying that. And so I really appreciate the feedback because the things that I wondered would be problems were not. So that's kind of good. So
Oh, good.
did you have any issue like that he's thinking about his ex-girlfriend in his head? Like you had no problem skipping back and forth between there's a, this voice in his head that's constantly going about all that. That didn't trip you up at all?
Mm-mm.
I think in this version, way better. Like in the
Great.
first version, yeah, but no, I think it was completely appropriate, and it makes also gives us, without us really knowing anything about the girlfriend, I already have an opinion about her because the fact, right? Because the fact that she keeps appearing in his head, even though he's trying not to, and then there's also this mystery, like, is he still in love with her? I mean, he's still thinking about her, but like, she sounds like she's kind of like a crow, like, so
Yeah, that's the
you know what I mean?
impression I got, like, he can still hear her nagging him.
Yes. So, like, it makes us wanna know more about her too, which is good too. So, no, that wasn't I didn't find that to be a problem.
I didn't either.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate what Tina is saying. And what is also interesting about you putting it into Word and having it read to you. And we were talking about the editing process. And I
Mhm,
even was like, I wonder if I can go and try to find something that is more what I sent to Jen the first time. Because as we were talking about the editing process and I was trying to think of how do I do it, it
mhm,
really very much is all how it sounds to me. Isn't that
mhm.
interesting? And as a reader, I'm not so much into the visual, but I appreciate hearing from someone who is so that I could get a clue of like where I might be needing to slow down and intensify. Because if you are someone who pictures, you want to make sure that that person is also satisfied with the read. Do you know what I mean? So
Yes,
it is
yeah.
really good to get that feedback because again, for me, it's all about the sound of it, like the music of the piece. And when I read it, my it's done is if I can read it as an audiobook and not feel like if I was hired to read it as an audiobook, it would be a chore
Mhm.
because the words are going to come and it's just not, it's going to make a lot of sense as you're reading along. Do you see what I mean? So
Yes.
like my editing process is really reading it over and over and over until it's done, which is very arbitrary, which is why it's very hard to share it, because you are like, but it's done. Do you know what I mean? And
Yes.
then, but so it's tricky. But I do appreciate absolutely that feedback. I'll have to look a little bit more at how I wrote the free lift, because Reese is angry that a volunteer is driving a free lift. They're supposed to only be on the freight trains. So the free lift is not a freight train, Tina. So I'm going to have to go back and look and see if I can prop that up a little more to make it a little bit clearer. And the thing about the eyes and can they close their eyes, Jen, I love that you are like, well, maybe, because that's great, because you're already like, things are not like they are for
Right.
me in this book. And so I really appreciate that you were like, what's going on there? Not that if it would pull you out of the story. KR was right. It was more like, okay. And what I was trying to do was, if you'll notice, he adopted a method that he read in the state's health and safety guidelines, that you relax your body and allow it all to become jellified, because then the impact would presumably, like, this is what he's learned to do from this handbook, right?
Okay.
And that he kept his eyes open because he just couldn't close them, because he had to see like what
Okay.
was going to happen. But again, if that's unclear, that might
Can
be
you guys hear
something
me?
that I would.
Sorry. I think I'm
Yeah.
glitching.
Yeah, I
Um,
can hear you.
I was thinking that the breathing thing was just so that he would relax because he was overreacting. So I was misreading that,
Yeah, me
the
too.
whole breathing thing. So
And I
again,
thought the legs
and if that's
gelling
maybe
was
clarify it a
fear.
little bit more. Yeah.
Sorry, Jen, you did glitch there and I talked over you, so I apologize.
No, that's okay.
Yes, and it is the hope that if I can get people to keep reading, like people refer to this health and safety guidelines a lot in the book, right? And so this is just the first time. So if you miss it, when you're reading, it won't it won't be a problem. It's just a thing to kind of break you into the idea that such a thing would exist, right? Like there's a manual for health and safety, and here's the protocol for this situation and this situation. And in a situation where there's going to be an impact, you jellify your body. Like, so that was kind of what I was hoping. But again, because you're reading it fast too, it's a scene where
Right.
a car crash is about to happen. So you're not really focusing on every little thing
Right.
like you would be for a critique.
You don't
And
want to
so
slow it down, because then that would slow down the action.
yes, and so I really hope that that's how it serves the reader, is just the beginning of that. And so the blonde woman, like, I totally see where you're coming from, Jen, especially for a romance genre, and I will look at it again. But my hope was that that was a way for me to introduce the idea that wilds dress and look this particular way, without, because everybody has to face it. When you are reading Divergent, it starts off with the girl looking in the mirror and making a commentary about how she doesn't ever look in the mirror because she's not allowed. So you have to kind of get some of these facts to the reader in
Right.
sort of a disguised way. So that was her purpose. That's the purpose of the blonde in the piece. But your feedback is well received, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
It was just to let you understand that I wanted to speak about her leather and I wanted to speak about her denim, because I wanted it to be significant about the difference. But maybe he doesn't have to seem so like, for lack of a better term, like sexually attracted to her. But
Right.
then also, like, Reese is not someone who is like a monogamous Christian guy and, whatever. And so there's some things that are revealed about him as well with that. Do you know what I'm saying?
So
And
here's a suggestion that I
yeah,
have. So you can leave the blonde as is, but then when you get to the auburn-haired girl, let's lose the whole love at first sight thing, and try to do that maybe the next chapter or whenever he runs into her again, and just talk. He can compare the two. Like, if you want to show that, like, well, he's just looking at women, then he can, you can talk about, like, unlike the blonde, and he could, like, say, like, normally he wouldn't be attracted to a girl like this, and talk about, like, try to focus on how she's different. Like, you're using the love at first sight thing to show that she's different, which I get. But you can let your reader infer that he's starting to get attracted to this woman just by the way that he's comparing her and how he's noticing things about her that are different than the average volunteer. Does that make sense?
But at the same time,
Yeah.
he needs to have a more intense reaction to her, because then
Yes.
the shattering moment wouldn't work as well.
Yes.
So
So
I hear what you're saying, but I already have chapters 2 and continual, and so I'm hoping
I
that
see.
that effect happens as you keep reading, because the thing is, in this incident, he saw her and he's like, wow, mostly because of her vibe, for lack of a
Mhm.
better word. It is not about her body, and it's the look of tender concern she has. It's her like heart for this person, and so maybe that could use a little bit of fleshing out. But what happens is she is just kind of now like
Mhm.
in his brain, you know,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
and so she like keeps popping up in his thoughts as the chapters go on. She does not become someone who's a main character like chapters 2, 3, 4, whatever. It's just he just for some reason can't stop with this girl that he saw, you know.
Right.
Whereas the blonde he never thinks about again. So
Right.
that's the difference. The difference is that there's a million billion blondes with leather and denim, a million billion of them, and the
Mhm.
only voice in his head is Mila, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so that's kind of, and besides, it's tricky too because this is a story with a romance plot line in it, but it's not a romance. And
Right.
so that also is what makes it tricky too, because like, where does your focus need to be? You know, how much is it about his lovey-dovey feelings and how much of it is about the politics of this world that he's in and blah, blah, blah. And so
I like
hopefully,
what you said, whereas the blonde, blah, blah, blah. If you could even add a sentence like something like that, like, while the blonde he saw earlier was physically what the world would see as attractive, something about this woman um, made him take a second look or something like that. If you could just
mhm,
kind of address the fact that we know he was looking at another woman and now he's looking at this woman so that we know as a reader, okay, this woman's different. Because when I
mhm,
read it, I thought the blonde woman was the main person. And then we get down here and now I'm like, okay, are there two women? That's why I needed a clarification if she was important or not. But you see what I'm
mhm.
saying? Like just kind of like one sentence like that, which would not destroy your next two chapters, I think would help someone like me at least be able to justify this guy, like, having like, looking at all these different women. So,
Yep, I
I
got
don't know
it.
if I have okay.
Yep, 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 for sure. Mhm.
So, um, KR says oh, wait, she says, "The fact that there's a state standard method for reacting to car crashes says a lot about the society. I really like that." Piper says, "He seems to be the person who follows rules and needs others to follow rules and reminds me of people I know in real life." Yes, that's a good thing. And she says, "I find this critique style excellent, but also difficult because when you only have a chapter or so at a time, it's difficult not to make suggestions that are moot because you have had more if you had more, you'd know." Okay, so I wouldn't say that they're moot. Even the suggestions that we're giving to Jamie that she can't use are always helpful. You learn things for like future projects or things that, like, and then things that you might read ahead and think, okay, well, I'm not gonna make the suggestion because I know what happens ahead. But you make that suggestion now, and it may be the one thing she was looking for to fix problems that she saw or that she
mhm.
felt in her chapters. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
I
it
wouldn't
can
call it
cascade.
yes, it can, and there
And
are
it
but
also can give you a way of looking at your piece that you hadn't thought of.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, remember mine a couple weeks ago, I'm gonna have to go and change at least 2 other chapters from that critique, but I'm telling you that critique you guys gave me is gonna be worth me going in and changing 2 other chapters that I thought were done.
Well,
So
and it's an interesting to get a reader's perspective because okay, so Jennifer mostly reads romance, and what's so funny to me is like I really I really do not know, and so it is very good to hear from Jennifer because I do not know if I were to pick this particular book up, if I would assign importance to that blonde character or not. Just being someone who read it from off the street because I'm the author. I'm the author and I wrote it. And so
mhm,
for me, I know that she's just a nothing of a character. And so to understand that your audience is not you is helpful. Do you understand what I mean? And so
Right.
you have to be able to like accommodate general readership if you want a wide readership, and that's why it's important to hear. And plus, you never know if what your critique will help in the future, because we all learn. And so like the only dumb question is a question you don't ask, because who knows if someday Tina or even Jen will write something that would benefit from this
Yes.
discussion. Yeah.
I've
So
learned lots from other people's pieces getting critiqued within our group. Plus,
Mhm.
the other thing too is we're giving you guys kind of just like a little taste. But when you're a part of a writing group that meets on a regular basis, everybody gets invested in each other's projects. And
yeah.
like kind of like how when we share our pieces, everyone knows who Colleen and Kate are at this point. And everyone's like, and the story isn't even like fleshed out. Like I'm just like writing pieces. But when you have a writing group and so when you would bring a piece, you would normally you're not going to bring just to the next chapter. You're going to bring something several chapters later, but it's going to be a piece that you're maybe struggling with, right? Or that is like maybe what I call the disaster scenes. It's going to be a pivot point in your story and you want to make sure you've hit the mark and things like that. And so yeah, all the things that Jamie said, I agree with all of those things, but just also remember that this would be something that you would be doing like on a regular basis, every other week, once a month. I mean, if
Right.
you're really crazy, once a week, but
And like
we
3 months into it, we would have so much more insight into Jamie's world that she's created.
and her style.
And yeah, and we would know her writing, right? And so then it would flavor our critique as we go.
That's a good point because another writer, I may not have focused on the female aspects, but I know Jamie's style. We've critiqued each other enough that I think that maybe I also like I see women or I see like a romance kind of a subplot, and that's where I focus in because I know that's what Jamie needs from me. Like I know that's my specialty, and I'm not at all shocked that Tina came out of the gate talking world building,
Yeah.
right? Because this is what we give each other, and like we've been together so long that it just makes sense for us to work that way. So yeah, like I didn't even think about the fact that like I focus on that and Tina focused on world building until we start like tearing apart and talking about how we do this. So
Yeah, and I barely
Well,
noticed the blonde girl. Like I noticed the description of what she was wearing and the difference between that and what he was wearing. Like that's what I noticed. So
right,
that's
yeah, because the world building.
yeah.
Yes,
yes.
exactly.
And
Um,
Piper said, yeah, she says, I hear what you're saying, but I've also been the recipient of crits with tons of I don't know. And did you explain X someplace? And I think you need to show this. And oh, it's elsewhere. Yes. Okay. So here's where I want to say when this is why it is so important. Like in the beginning, they asked me, what do you want to hear? And I didn't want to say what I wanted to hear because then I thought it would make them feel like, oh, she was wanting like, but if you need to be the advocate for specifically what you want to get from the critique, and you need to have like enough of a rapport with the group that you're with to be kind of like, look, I really just need this particular problem solved. Like maybe I don't even need the whole 20 minutes that this writing group is appointed to me, because I really just need to know if this is working right here. Because writers are writers, and some of them will want to pick up the ball and run with your story and like write it for you. And they're like, well, I'm confused about this and I'm confused about that. Yes, but I'm not asking for help with that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it might feel mean, but I mean, like you're accepting a critique, which is like a difficult thing to do. So it has to really feel like a give and take that's going to serve the author. It's very difficult to receive critique on something that you don't have an issue with, because you're like, I'm good with that part. And why are you like belaboring the point of whatever? Do you know what I mean? And so it can really be difficult if you're not able to advocate for yourself.
And plus, again, I just say that someone like that, the next time you bring something in, like it's just going to get better. They're going to realize that, like, all right, I know that Piper did this on purpose, so I don't even need to comment that. You know what I'm saying? Like these girls, they look at some of my stuff like KR says, I kind of like it when someone asks a question about that I explain in a later part of the story because I'm like, good, you've fallen right into my trap. Yes, that's kind of it. Like,
Me.
yeah, exactly. Like these
Like, that's
ladies know
exactly what I wanted.
we know each other's writing enough that we can tell when some things that we don't even like mention anymore because we know like what they're gonna take care of that or whatever. So Piper
Mhm.
says, I think if your writing group is small enough that you are able to regularly read and add feedback, it would be awesome. Too
Yeah.
larger group, yes, means you're getting a crit every 3 to 4 months. So the way we did it, and I know this is like a little kickback. We've had other episodes, and I know we're running short on time, but we timed it. We used to have 7 people, and that was a bit too much. But we would time it when everybody got 20 minutes, and that was it. And we had because otherwise you're going to be there all day long, or someone ended up taking up a half an hour, 45 minutes, and then we were in a hurry to try to finish everybody up. So yes, keeping it smaller is better. I do believe that definitely a timer is always best, and have it like we said at the beginning, way back when we talked about writing groups from the beginning, setting expectations is very important. So if everyone comes in with the expectation, I get 20 minutes, I get 25 minutes, I get 30 minutes, whatever your group decides, then that means we get a critique for 20 minutes and then we get 10 minutes to discuss it and then it's done. The timer goes off and you move on to the next person. People are much more concise and I think that it works a lot better. Plus, again, like Jamie said, you start to like advocate for yourself and tell what you need, and it'll work out better when you're meeting regularly and you start to trust the people in your group.
Yes.
So
Well, I trust you ladies enough to let you give critique, and I appreciate it. It was so awesome to get that feedback. I thank you. I
I'm
can't
glad.
say thank you enough times.
Very excited for this book. Very excited. All right. So speaking of critique, here comes our favorite part of the podcast every week is our feeding of the backs. This is where we share a piece right before the podcast starts. We sit down as a team and we sprint for 15 minutes. We share that sprint prompt with all of you out on social media as well as I didn't do it in the Facebook group today. Sorry, guys. Um, so that you can sprint along with us as well. But we set a timer for 15 minutes, rewrite, and then we share it live here on the podcast. We don't go back and reread it. We don't do any editing. It is just raw, a fresh piece. So this kind of critique that we give here is just bread. We only give positive and encouraging feedback, the parts that we like about it, because we haven't had time to edit it. And this is a very fun part. So we love doing this. So I'm going to start, since we just talked with Jamie, let's have it with Tina. Tina, share with us what the prompt is and what you wrote, please.
Okay. The prompt was 5 words, and those 5 words were relationship, topple. I'm sorry, I wrote topple twice. I must increase disposition. What was
And
the other
pray.
one? Pray. Okay. I didn't use any of them. So I just started writing with the intention of trying to use one of them, and it just didn't happen.
Oh, just use one of them. Well,
Well,
set the bar low and you'll still miss it.
well, I thought I could at least get one of them in there, but it just did. Like this scene
Hey,
was just in there, and it had to come out.
you wrote today. That's what's important, right?
That's right.
Agreed.
That's right. Okay.
All
And
right, let's
my
hear
okay, I have to hold my glasses up here.
it.
The wind blew through the forest, stirring papery leaves, sending them spinning in little whirlwinds, before racing up the hillside toward a rocky crest where the old woman stood, walking stick in hand, as if surveying her kingdom below. The
Hmm.
wind whipped the fur lining of the old woman's parka before racing on toward more interesting targets. Angelica's heart raced within her. There was something familiar and, at the same time, strange about the woman. Strange in an awe inspiring way that made her throat tighten with an emotion that felt somehow nostalgic. The woman turned her gaze, looking down at Angelica, and a warm smile appeared on her wizened face. She gestured for Angelica to come to her. Angelica went forward without a thought. Samuel grabbed her arm, a look of concern in his eyes as he shook his head at her. Angelica placed her hand on his and gently removed it. It's okay, she said softly, sudden realization flooding her. I've seen this moment in a dream. It's my destiny.
Hmm.
Samuel reluctantly released his grip, but followed close behind as Angelica made her way up the steep incline, his spear gripped in his hand. Angelica reached the top, turned, and placed a hand on Samuel's chest. Wait here, she said, then made her way over to the old woman. I have been waiting for you. the old woman said. Did you have a dream about me as well? The old woman laughed, a rich melodic sound, throwing her head back as she did so. No, she finally replied, pointing to the view below them. I saw you coming. 3, 2, 1.
I love the humor at the end. Like the no,
Mhm.
I saw you coming. Like feels very like oh, like I can't think of his name. Mel Brooks-ish kind of like I just oh no, I saw you
Oh,
coming.
wise
I'm an
page.
oracle. Yeah. Oh no, I saw you coming. Like that was great. Like again, world building, right? Tina, you're great at this. Like I could see it. I was there, like the wind blowing the fur on her parka and just Angelica, like, oh, it was the dream I had. Like just so well done. Love it.
Yeah.
This is part of your book 3 world, or you just were writing?
Yeah, book 3.
Okay.
I am not sure if you are a film director's nightmare or best dream, because like to
Right.
capture the cinematographic whatever imagery that you put, it's a pretty high bar. But I think that it would inspire people to make some beautiful movies. That's to be sure, because you nail the landscape every time. I feel like you might kind of like that area of the world, Tina. Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a
Your
little bit.
appreciation for it completely shows in your writing and the details that you capture.
Thank
Mhm.
you. I was just talking to someone about this the other day, and I was telling them that my belief in God was not born out of like going to church every Sunday. My belief in God was born out of every window of my house that I looked out of was like
Mm.
this beautiful, majestic mountains and like the scenery around me. It had, people talk about the call of the wild, and like it really is like the spirit of God really embodied. It's I can almost understand why the natives like worship nature, because God's nature is reflected in what he's created. And
Mhm.
so like that, like I just instinctually knew there was a God, and then I went to church and it solidified it. And
Yeah.
so
And
when I write that, it is really an act of worship for me.
Hmm.
mm,
That's amazing.
And I don't want you to think that I'm like some weird like tree lover, like but like because
No, it
it's a
makes total
reflection of
sense.
God's nature, it's an act of
I'm
worship for me.
we were just talking about like compare it to what man makes, right, Jennifer? Like weren't we just
Mhm.
talking about human design? And so you look around at like this beautiful mountain, and then you look at a suburb, and you're just like, who's the master creator? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yes.
Uh,
Piper says, LOL, I love the end. Gigi says, Tina, very interesting character, painting quite a mental picture. KR Vanderport says, that was great. I love the suspense building up to the confrontation. First, where she recognized the woman, then where she remembers the dream, then the part where she says it's her destiny. Yeah. Well done, Tina.
yeah,
Thanks.
agree.
All right. I will go next. And I am again in Colleen and Kate's world just because I don't know where else to be at this point. So
It's a good place to be.
it's a good place to be. Pray. It seemed like a simple thing, prayer. She'd been doing it her whole life. In fact, she'd prayed that very morning, thanking the Lord for his provisions and asking for his protection over the day. But somehow Colleen knew that that wasn't enough. When Colleen was younger, her relationship with the Lord was so much stronger. She remembered the days when she would stay awake for hours, talking with him, sharing her day, drifting off to sleep in his presence. She missed those days when she was still innocent and trusting. She wasn't certain when exactly her disposition toward prayer had changed, but she knew it was sometime after marrying Denny. Marrying Denny and moving to the Americas had toppled her world. Not initially, mind you, because in the beginning, Denny wasn't so bad. But then the drinking increased, as did his time spent in town at night, which Colleen had become grateful for, since that meant he took not only his affections, but also his anger elsewhere. It was his return that she had always dreaded and had the scars to prove it. It was somewhere in the midst of enduring his abuse that her prayer life changed. Why pray to an invisible God who never answers your prayers? It might sound strange, but despite the change in her relationship with God, Colleen never lost her faith. She still believed in him, knew he was still God. She just knew she just now knew that he didn't care for her the way that she always thought he did. Oh, he loved her for sure. The Bible told her that, but not like he loved others. And that was okay, she assured herself, for he had died on a cross for her, and that was more than she ever deserved. She would just have to be satisfied with being the dog that accepted the scraps that fell from the table rather than the honored guest served there. 3, 2, 1. That's
Yeah, I feel like that is very relatable for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah,
When
to put
you're, yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I thought you
Well,
were
when you're going through things, just life, because every Christian has to have an internal reckoning with the realities of the world. You have to. And because, I mean, God is good, God is good, God is good is a message that is hammered into us. And yet we kind of look around at a broken and fallen world and then when it's not that you're looking around and seeing things are broken and fallen, but it feels like your life is broken and wrong and fallen. And every Christian has to reckon with that. And so I appreciate that this is just very real.
Thank you.
And as someone who was once in an abusive relationship, and I feel really connected to that feeling that, um, yeah, everybody else is more worthy of
Mhm.
love, and I'll just take the scraps because I'm not worthy of anything else, and it's really about a feeling of self worth, and um, because you've been trained to think about yourself that way.
I really appreciate that feedback, Tina, because I've not been in an abusive relationship, and it's like I do want to write real characters, but they need to be like not like a facsimile, right? They need to feel real, and I really appreciate that feedback. So,
Thanks.
Just we missed a comment from KR about Tina. She gets the feeling that you say about worshiping in your writing. She especially loves looking at the stars and thinking about the vastness of creation and God's power. And then feedback on Jen's piece from Piper. Aw, to be a dog sitting for the scraps. Yeah. And that's one of those other Bible verses. Not really sure where it lives, but it's there.
yeah.
Shell says, heartbreaking, Jen, but I've been there too in hard seasons. And Gigi says, oh, Jenifer, poor Colleen, you wrote that so well, made me tear up.
Oh,
And KR Vanderport, dude, Jen, that's powerful. It makes me think about my own struggles with understanding God's character and my worth. Agree.
I really
And what
appreciate that because that's my whole point is I want characters that people can relate to and that like they also get something out of my books. My books are not just about kissing, though those are the fun scenes to write. Like there needs to be a bigger message for the person reading it. So I appreciate the feedback.
Well, and I like to think about the fact that like she has God's word and we have God's word, and that would be something that unless you're writing way back historical fiction, it's really neat to think that as people of faith, we all kind of have the same, you know what I mean? It's something
Yeah.
to where, like, you can say dogs begging at the master's feet, you can say it in 17 whatever, and you can say it in 2022, and
Right.
it's a bond.
Yep. I appreciate that. Thanks, Jamie. All right. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate all that feedback. All right, Jamie, your turn.
All
And
righty.
I have to ask, is yours a complete story or is it done or is it
I would think this is done.
okay?
All
I
right.
like knowing in advance so that I don't get let down when I think, oh, maybe we'll get more. 'Cause but you
All
are the
right.
master of being able to do that in 15 minutes. Do it, write a complete story.
Yeah, if you're looking to watch it live, I forgot to hit go live today, so sorry. All right. There it was on the top shelf, the game I'd begged for last Christmas and the previous birthday. Topple. Can we play
Hmm.
that? I asked, pointing up. Mary Beth turned on the closet light, then blinked through her fake eyelashes. I asked myself for the millionth time why adults always seem to need to turn the lights on, and simultaneously squashed a not so kind thought about Mary Beth and the intelligence of a person who would do such a thing when they know quite well they are going to be looking up. Oh, memory? Sure, she crooned, lifting a long, slender arm and plucking up the game I hated most in the world, almost most in the world, with her French manicured fingernails. She hugged the square box to her chest. I adored this game when I was your age, she said, giving me that look grown-ups always give me that is supposed to make me feel some kind of I am loved way, but never does, because I always feel like they are looking at an image of what they think they must have looked like when they were my age or size or whatever. Inside, I felt 3 times too big for my skin. I knew it was my anger balloon puffed up with the wind of being misunderstood. I knew my little brother would have clenched his fist and demanded topple, but as much as my temper balloon was puffed up, so was my blanket of poor Mary Jane laying heavily on the right side of my brain. I smiled and babbled something about it being fun to play a couple of rounds of an old favorite. Then I said, and could we maybe also try that other game, the one next to that one? She looked up again, and I held my breath. Up went the long, slender arm again, but in the direction of Battleship, which had
Oh,
been laid to rest on the other side of memory. No, not that one, I said, and felt perfectly okay with the disgusted tone in which it flew forth, knowing quite well Mary Jane would wrongfully attribute the feelings to the game she almost destined both of us to endure. This one? She asked, tapping the topple box so that the side of the rectangular carton was facing us. I've never heard of it, she said, and brought her arm down, flicking off the light and sliding the bifold door closed before I could process what was happening. We'll see
mhm.
how much time we have left after memory. I mean, it's going to be pretty close to bedtime after all. She disappeared, and so did my anger, replaced as it was by a feeling of anticipatory dread. The balloon was no longer filled with the hot wind of rage. Now it contained less than half its fillable content of warm Cairo syrup. It sloshed around and rolled around as I endured 4 miserable rounds of memory with Mary Jane. Never before had I longed for bedtime to be closer at hand. It wasn't even any fun to let her win.
Aw, this poor little kid. Oh, Jamie, I don't know how you do that and make me like just I don't even know this person, right? But this little kid is real and I feel bad for them and I want to march in there and grab Topple off the shelf. Well done.
Thanks.
I do not like this Mary Jane person.
She can't help it
Like, and
Well,
why
she
does she feel
should.
bad for Mary Jane? Like why does
because
there
Mary Jane can't help it. Because Mary Jane turns on the light when she's looking up in the closet, and the kid's like, "This girl, like this kid is just like." This girl likes to play memory. Are you kidding me? Like the world's most like this girl
right.
is just like
I still don't
about
feel
Mary
bad for
Jane.
her.
Yeah.
Your character is just too nice. I was like, Topple. I wanted Topple.
Yeah.
Well done, Jamie.
Yeah.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
I also really like the descriptions of her emotions as bubbles, and the Karo syrup and all that imagery.
Mm.
I love that.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And I can see Mary Jane, the manicured fingernails and long arms and, just, other writers would just say she reached up and got it, and you
Well,
give
and
us so
Mary
much
Jane
more.
is like nice too. That's also the problem. Like Mary
Mhm.
Jane isn't mean. She's
Right.
just clueless, right? And so the girl has a hard time being angry with her,
Mhm.
so
Right. Yeah,
that's
get
how
it.
she was feeling.
Yeah, you showed us all of that. Well done.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
KR says, Jamie, how are you so good at writing from the point of view of a child? It's so realistic, makes me remember how I thought when I was a kid. I agree with that. I
Mhm.
absolutely agree with that. Shell says, oh, the frustration was so real. Piper says, aw, is Topple another name for Jenga? I don't blame her. Let's not play memory. LOL. Gigi says, Jamie, this is so good. The way you let us in on her internal feelings and emotions. Wow. The anger bubble. Wow. Agreed. So is
Topple
Topple
has, yeah, it's got like these little discs that you have to put on the thing. And then if you make it topple, like you're the loser. I'm pretty sure I played it somewhere, sometime as a kid. It's like, ooh. So it's like a platform, I guess. And you have to strategically place your discs and not make it topple. I kind of remembered it being more looking like a tree, but whatever. But the point is, yes, it is a real game. And it was the only word of the list that I grabbed it and ran. So I don't even know if I had any of the others.
Oh, I forgot to brag. I used all 5 of the words. Just
Woo!
saying. I get the points for.
Yes. Someone follows the rules.
Yep, that's me. That's me. I'm the rule follower.
I get more pleasure out of the fact that I didn't.
No, I'm totally Reese. Let's be honest. We all know that. I'm totally Reese.
I'm the girl who likes the guy with the mohawk.
You're the blonde.
You're the blonde. All right, good stuff, ladies. All right, so before we head out of here, we are running a little bit over, but that's pretty normal for us. I guess that's part of on brand for us anymore. Before we head out of here, it is time for us to do our what's next. This is when we share some accountability and tell everybody what we're going to be working on. And yeah, so Jamie, let's start with you because we ended with you.
Wasn't I editing something for someone once upon a time?
I think so, but I think that someone was like distracted herself. So,
but I really need to make an effort to get that finished up. And then also, well, I am in week 20 of my 30-week Java development program. So yay me. We are switching to HTML and CSS and JavaScript, which is all website building, which is amazing because I feel a little more at home with this. And I'm enjoying it. So that's good. But as far as writing goes, it was really great to get back in there with this piece analog, which I thought I was ready to publish. But even as I was going through it once again before I submitted it to you all, I made some changes. So that will be a process of getting that up and going, but not yet. So for this week, I'm going to see if I can finish the edits for Jen.
All right. I am going away this week, and I already shared that. So, and then when we come back on Tuesday, the next day, my girls start homeschooling. And so, I'd like to think I'm going to get some work done this week, but I'll be quite honest. Like, this is going to be a big transition week for us. So I'm probably not going to get to, so don't stress out, Jamie. I'm probably not going to be editing this week. Nobody come at me. No one come at me. So, but I'm hoping to get back into getting some editing. You know what's stopping me now, and I'll be completely honest, is I know I need to go back and fix those chapters that you guys gave me the critique on. And I just am like, I already checked those as off, as done. And they're not now for my mind to go back and do writing instead of editing. So that's kind of my stopper and everything else going on in life. So, but that's where I'm at right now. All right, Tina, what about you? What's next?
Well, I'm also going camping, so maybe I'll see you there.
Yay.
Just
I'm
for the
leaving
night.
here in like a half an hour, like an hour or so.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So, but I'm only staying one night. And then I'm good. I did a lot of development on what I'm going to write while I was gone because I had my laptop with me and I don't normally write on my laptop and I just couldn't like get into the right brain space with that little keyboard on my little MacBook. It's like this big. I need my big. But I did get a lot. Like I wrote like 7 pages in a notebook about stuff that I want to write. So I'm ready to go for that. And that's about it.
Awesome. All right. I forgot I was hosting.
Hey, welcome to my world.
So that is gonna we're finished here now. If you want to continue the conversation, join us over in our Facebook group where we can all share our what's next and show some love to each other. And also Jamie will be going over there and opening up comments on her piece that she had closed the comments on. She'll be opening up the comments and continue the after show comments and conversation over at our Facebook group. The link is in our show notes. And thank you for everyone who joined us live. And for those of you that are listening as a podcast as well, we appreciate every single one of you. But until next week, may your pen be prolific. May your deadlines be met. And may all of your words honor Christ. Bye now.
Bye.